Welcome to the Playing Books podcast.
We are getting into a really insightful journey today, I think. We're dissecting a book that, on the surface, feels like it's about style, but it's really, it's a whole philosophy.
It is. It's about self-presentation, strategic communication, all of that.
And internal confidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our source is this fantastic book, Michelle Obama's The Look. It's co-written with her indispensable style partner, Meredith Coupe. And it has this really profound foreword by Farah Jasmine Griffin. And we have to frame this episode right from the start. This isn't just a book about fashion history. It's really an exploration of how a public image is intentionally crafted, step by step to become this powerful language.
A language of activism, even, and a political statement.
Right.
And what's so extraordinary about this book is just the sheer depth of it. It gives you a 360-degree view. It goes from her memories as a little kid, shopping for clothes in Chicago with her mom, all the way up through her evolution after the White House.
And crucially, we get these really candid, detailed accounts from the people who were right there with her.
Yeah.
Her style team, the trifecta, as she calls them.
Yeah, that's what I love.
And our mission for you listening right now is to pull out the most compelling stories, the specific quotes, and those really practical lessons that are just embedded in these pages.
Yeah.
We want to challenge you to go beyond just appreciating her style.
Right. It's about incorporating these ideas of, strategic presentation and intentional self-assertion to genuinely enhance your own life, whether you're, walking into a boardroom or just planning your next big event.
Exactly.
So let's start with what I think is the core paradox that Michelle Obama really navigates throughout the entire book. She's, a high-achieving, Harvard-educated lawyer and executive, a woman who is defined by her substance.
Right. By your intellect.
And then she's suddenly thrust into this role where the whole world just reduces her to, a physical object of scrutiny.
That transition from what she calls her regular person closet to the intense collective gaze of the world is, it's what makes her journey so relatable, but it's also so painful to read about.
It is.
She had all the substance, but society demanded that she submit to this surface-level judgment. And the ultimate, it's almost absurd. The marker of this hyper-scrutiny is the statistic she shares. Media critics counted approximately 689 articles written specifically about her arms.
689. Just think about that number. That alone just encapsulates this immense, unrelenting pressure of being a public woman.
It really does.
It just underscores that for women, and especially women of color, in the public eye, your body and your appearance are always the first and most analyzed narrative. It doesn't matter what your ideas are or what you've accomplished.
She realized it immediately. Her clothes, her hair, her makeup. They would be talking long before she ever opened her mouth.
So she had to control that conversation.
Okay, so let's unpack the bedrock of her style philosophy.
Sure.
Let's trace it back to her South Side Chicago upbringing, which really instilled this dual framework, uncompromising confidence mixed with just sheer pragmatism.
That foundation starts so early. She tells this story about her first truly loved outfit. It was a brown polyester Sears dress she chose in kindergarten.
Right.
And the book really emphasizes the emotional impact first. She describes this jolt of electricity, of self-confidence that this one little garment gave her. That feeling of self-assertion, that spark, that was everything.
But then there's the other side of the coin, the equal and often competing factor with her mother's practicality. Why polyester?
Because it works.
Exactly. As her mother understood, for a working family, that garment had to work just as hard as they did. It didn't wrinkle easily, and critically, it hid stains. Her mother's lesson was crystal clear. Utility and durability often have to outweigh fleeting trends.
And you can see that conflict play out in her childhood fashion dreams versus the reality. She dreamed of these playful styles like the iconic white go-go boots that celebrities were wearing.
Oh, yeah.
But her mother, who was just focused on the realities of the Chicago climate and their budget, she insisted on T-bar Mary Janes and those truly, as she says, ugly rubber snow boots.
Did you absolutely need for a Chicago winter?
You do. So style, in her youth, it was always grounded in survival and utility first.
And this sense of utility was then fused with this really profound cultural sensibility. What the book calls the Black woman aesthetic imperative.
It's a great phrase.
It is. And this concept meant she grew up navigating two really intense pressures within the Black community at the same time.
So the first pressure was this imperative to be meticulously respectable and presentable. And this was, a necessary defense mechanism. It was a shield to counter these pervasive, harmful stereotypes.
So her appearance could never be used as an excuse for discrimination.
Exactly. Presentation was a form of political armor.
But the second pressure, which was sort of the creative release, was the cultural priority on individual creativity.
Yeah.
She learned that in her community, you weren't just expected to wear clothes.
No, you're expected to put a spin on it, alter it, make it interesting, make it your own.
I love that.
This cultural demand for innovation meant that personal style was seen as an assertion of your identity and a really valuable contribution to the whole community's aesthetic.
And if you look at her influences, the elegantly dressed church ladies in their spectacular crown-like hats, the Afrocentric sisters embracing innovative styles, these were not passive followers of fashion.
Not at all. The book really emphasizes that these innovators on the street were often the ones informing the runways, not the other way around. Even if their styles were, initially dismissed or labeled condescendingly by the mainstream fashion culture.
So this complexity, this balance between respectability, utility, and self-assertion, it was the essential training ground for her eventual public life. But I mean, stepping into the national political spotlight introduced a level of vicious, intense scrutiny that just proved this framework was necessary for survival.
That historical context is so vital to understand the scale of the challenge. The criticism directed at Michelle Obama wasn't just, political disagreement. It was rooted in this deep, often racist and misogynistic vitriol.
Deploying stereotypes like the angry black woman.
Right, or the emasculating shrew. These attacks were trying to delegitimize her simply because of her race and her strength.
And the book does the crucial work of tracing this judgment back into American history. They cite this 1929 incident with First Lady Lou Henry Hoover. She invited Jessie DePriest, the wife of the only African-American congressman at the time, to a White House tea.
And the fallout was immediate and ugly. Hoover got letters expressing just utter disgust that a real white lady in the White House would disgrace the institution by associating with Negroes.
It's chilling.
It's chilling because it shows that for generations, Black women were actively denied the very term and status of lady. So when Michelle Obama arrived almost 80 years later, detractors didn't just critique her politics. They were challenging her very right to occupy that space.
Viewing her as fundamentally unfit. Too tall, too muscular, too outspoken.
Never soft-spoken or grateful enough.
She recognized this reality early on. She realized her appearance wasn't just going to be critiqued, it risked becoming the entire narrative, detracting from her serious work.
So she had to be very clear and careful about her presentation. She had to make every choice deliberate so that the image she presented amplified her message instead of overriding it.
It was strategic warfare conducted through fabric.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which brings us directly into the early campaign trail. This is where she had to quickly transition from, accidental participant to a conscious strategist. That initial period, especially around the 2004 DNC, it just sounds like total chaos. It was pure high-stakes improvisation. I mean, she recounts this mad scramble before her husband's 2004 Senate election. She was literally panic shopping at Barney's hours before the victory celebration.
Just trying to find a tan tweed suit that fit.
And that conveyed a sense of importance, that urgency, and just lack of preparation that really characterized those early years.
And the peak of that naive foolishness, which is her term, was getting ready for the 2004 Democratic National Convention keynote address. She squeezed shopping for the outfit into a lunch break.
A lunch break.
Grabbing a crisp white taffeta suit with a gray pinstripe from Bloomingdale's.
And why was that choice so foolish? I mean, it was a light color, so it could easily get stained. It was high maintenance.
And she traveled without any backup. She treated this massive national debut like it was just a casual one-off event.
And that incident was the wake-up call. It confirmed she had to immediately ditch that workhorse office wardrobe of simple conservative suits for something that was scalable, durable, and just designed for constant scrutiny.
The initial change in perspective, it seems, came from Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
After Barack's electrifying 2004 convention speech, Oprah featured the family in O, the Oprah magazine. And Michelle joked to Oprah about this sudden need for a completely new public-facing wardrobe.
And Oprah, being Oprah, responded generously. The gift was this large box with several Ralph Lauren suits and these luxurious cable-knit sweaters. This was Michelle's first introduction to real investment pieces.
Clothes with superior construction and cut that actually made her feel confident and beautiful. It redefined her whole understanding of how quality clothing could support a demanding schedule.
But the systemic problem was still there, the double standard.
Right, Barack could wear the same two suits and just switch out his tie and nobody would even blink.
But for her, because of the media scrutiny, she couldn't repeat outfits without generating a whole new cycle of criticism. This meant just constant, time-consuming procurement of new looks, which was totally unsustainable.
She needed stability and expertise. And that's what led her to these key partnerships in Chicago. The first was with Maria Pinto, a local Chicago designer.
Right, whose aesthetic Michelle described as modern minimalist with an architectural edge. Pinto's genius was creating these clean, elegant, mix-and-match pieces.
And Pinto's solution to the repetition problem was the sheath dress. She created this beloved, reliable silhouette for Michelle that she ended up owning in a dozen different fabrics and colors.
That simple, chic staple was so strategic. It was easy to style, it was always appropriate, and it provided consistency under fire. It was really her first step toward a personalized, strategic style, all while using a local talent.
This whole organizational development, it really culminates on election night 2008. The choice of that Narciso Rodriguez dress, that highly saturated black and red piece, was just such a powerful statement.
Rodriguez himself called it an unapologetic moment. It wasn't a safe, prim little two-piece suit.
No. It signaled that change had arrived, and it was bold. It immediately became a part of fashion history. It confirmed that clothing was now a deliberate, political narrative device for her, and she paired it with her signature pearl necklace, which gave this polished, familiar tone during the campaign. It was approachability without being too flashy.
The foundation was officially established.
So when she's in the White House, she truly establishes this ethos of First Lady as a verb, a role defined by motion, accessibility, and radical inclusion, starting on day one.
The 2009 inaugural look was, a masterclass in messaging. For the swearing-in, she chose Isabel Toledo's lemongrass shift dress and matching coat. The material was a silk-lined wool lace.
And that sunny, optimistic color perfectly matched the atmosphere of a new birth of freedom.
But critically, it was functional. It was 28 degrees in D.C. that morning, so she chose it for warmth, strategically layering a cardigan, a scarf, and 2 pairs of pantyhose underneath the coat.
Even though her chic sage green J.Crew gloves apparently weren't warm enough against the cold.
But the whole outfit had to handle the outdoor ceremony, the parade, and the indoor Senate luncheon. It had to work.
But the most powerful message, I think, came with the inaugural ball gown. She chose Jason Wu, who was then a young, largely unknown Taiwanese-born American designer.
This decision was a deliberate rejection of protocol. She explicitly bucked the establishment by declining the offer from Oscar de la Renta, who was the traditional choice for first ladies.
That choice was seismic. By championing this overlooked, diverse talent like Wu, she was signaling that the Obama administration was all about expanding the table, not just maintaining the status quo.
And she solidified that commitment by continuously wearing designers from diverse backgrounds. Tracy Reese, a black woman, Narciso Rodriguez, son of Cuban immigrants, Naeem Khan, an Indian American. This was fashion as political policy.
Her commitment to the role being a verb demanded a wardrobe that could keep up. Think about her schedule. Constant motion, supporting the Let's Move initiative.
She was always gardening, dancing, hula hooping, doing double dutch. Her clothes had to allow movement and be durable enough to withstand just the sheer variety of her day.
A breakfast with veterans, a school visit, a formal state dinner, all in one day.
Which is just insane.
This functionality led to her famous wardrobe criteria. The clothes had to be comfortable and allow for movement. She introduced the O-arm hug test.
The O-arm hug test. I love that.
Because she was the always hugger-in-chief, she needed to be able to give a big, comfortable hug at any moment. And she learned very quickly to avoid white if she was going to be hugging people on a rope line.
Oh, because of makeup transfer.
Exactly. Makeup or lipstick could so easily transfer onto her shoulder. The small details are just logistical genius.
And that strategic focus on accessibility led directly to her famous high-low mixing of affordable and luxury brands. The classic story, which became a huge PR moment, was her interview with Jay Leno.
Right. Leno was guessing her wardrobe cost, and he estimated something like $60,000 or $70,000 for her daily outfits.
And her response was just iconic. J.Crew.
This move was so brilliant because it made her instantly relatable, especially during the Great Recession when everyone was struggling. She proved that you could be aspirational without being an elitist.
This pragmatism also explains the infamous cardigan controversy. She addresses the criticism head-on in the book. She acknowledges, you don't go to Buckingham Palace in a sweater.
But she defended them so fiercely, valuing the cardigan as the ultimate practical yet stylish piece. They provided this soft comfort over a restrictive jacket, and they helped pull a look together while conveying approachability.
It was a trade-off she was willing to make, connection over convention.
And beyond that, she used intentional simplicity to convey empathy in times of crisis. When she knew she was going to be meeting with families suffering a loss or community members impacted by disaster, she would consciously choose the most simple clothing.
A basic button-up or a t-shirt from her everyday closet.
That deliberate stripping away of the fashion fanfare, it ensured that the clothing didn't become a distraction. It just signaled, I am here simply as a person. Focus only on this conversation.
And that intentionality, that's the real lesson for listeners, I think. Understanding when your style should speak loudly and when it should just sort of disappear to serve a greater purpose.
Now we get to the really fascinating peek behind the curtain, the creation of the look. This required this whole sophisticated architecture of professionals, and it all starts with Meredith Coupe, her stylist.
Meredith's background is so instructive because it's not just pure fashion. She initially had a passion for it, but felt like she needed to pursue a viable career, so she studied clinical psychology at Vanderbilt.
Which is fascinating.
It is, because that psychological training actually made her a phenomenal stylist.
It's the ultimate lesson in transferable skills. Working at Ikram Goldman's Chicago boutique, she realized that dressing clients was fundamentally about communication and problem solving.
Right. It was this complex puzzle. It was about color, silhouette, fabric, but most importantly, it was about understanding the emotional goal of the woman for that specific occasion. She was using clothing to help women assert themselves.
So after a brief return to studying psychology, she gets this call from Ikram, asking her to be the style intermediary for the incoming First Lady. Her initial title was the Purposefully Undefined Valet.
A role that has a long, if overlooked, history in the White House, all the way back to George Washington.
And she officially started the job on Inauguration Day. Talk about a baptism by fire.
Seriously. By late 2010, Michelle Obama recognized Meredith's indispensable role and asked her to take over as the primary stylist. And Meredith immediately set about creating a functional infrastructure. She established Boutique Coupe, her office and workshop on the third floor of the executive residence.
This was where she could manage inventory, lay out specific looks, and just systematically track everything.
This organizational mastery led to the crucial hire of Christy Rilling, a talented tailor from New York, who brought this amazing no-problem attitude.
Which was essential, because Michelle Obama is 5'11" with a long frame, meaning pretty much every single garment, from ready-to-wear to custom-required, precise, complicated alterations.
And the prep process for every event was like academic research. Meredith studied every single variable: the historical significance, the audience, the lighting, Michelle's expected movements, the political climate, cultural protocols.
She worked with the State Department and advanced teams, just absorbing information like she was studying for a high-stakes exam, all to develop the fashion narrative.
This research directly informed the custom projects with designers, which they prioritized to create these singular looks. This prevented that awkward who wore it best situation.
And it ensured perfect practicality. They could focus on durable fabrics and resilient silhouettes that could hold up over the extremely long, intense days the job demanded.
The fittings themselves sound like these intense but really efficient sessions. Michelle would sit on the floral couch, maybe during a quick break in a briefing, and just say, what do we got?
And Meredith would present 3 or 4 complete racks, walking her through the whole thought process, always prioritizing practical details like comfort, temperature, and durability.
To manage the workload, sometimes they had to review 20 or 30 looks in just a few hours. Meredith kept the atmosphere light. She'd play music, tell jokes, just to keep the process from becoming a dreaded chore.
The level of detail in the alterations is just staggering. Christy Rilling wasn't just shortening hems. They were adding sleeves, lengthening existing sleeves, and critically, often changing standard wrap dresses into faux wrap dresses.
That faux wrap detail is pure functional genius. A true wrap dress can gape or shift awkwardly when you're seated for a long time, especially in a formal setting.
Right.
Changing it to a faux wrap ensured a secure fit, preventing wardrobe malfunctions and maintaining a perfect tailored look even after hours of sitting. They also installed long back zippers so Michelle could step into a garment, avoiding pulling it over her perfectly finished hair and makeup.
That immense, detailed, technical labor is the invisible work that allows that flawless public image to exist.
Okay, moving to the beauty experts. Let's talk about Carl Ray, the makeup artist. His background is so compelling. He was in the military, but he had this early interest in art and beauty because of his dyslexia.
He recounts secretly filling in the features on his mom's wig heads as a child.
I love that story. And when he got the job offer to do Michelle's makeup, he honestly assumed it was a hoax.
And his first interaction just perfectly broke the ice. When she asked him how he was feeling, he just candidly replied, "Nervous as crap, man."
And she just laughed, and that established the trust and ease they needed. Their professional relationship became a genuine dance. Michelle learned exactly when to close her eyes or suck in her cheek for contouring, often while she was simultaneously working or being briefed.
He was a specialist in lashes, too. He created these distinct looks for different lighting. A lighter day lash, a specialized TV lash, and a dramatic evening lash, all applied with waterproof mascara and dark tone glue.
And for a big event like a state dinner, he'd sometimes use 2 strips for maximum glam. Their collaboration is so strong now that she often doesn't even feel the need to look in the mirror when he's done.
Which just speaks volumes about the level of professional trust they built.
And finally, the hair story. This involves the collective genius of Johnny Wright, Yen Damtu, and later Njeri Radway. The need for wigs and extensions became a functional necessity after 2009, and this wasn't about trends or vanity, it was purely protective.
Precisely. To maintain that perfect look for multiple appearances every day required constant heat styling, which just severely damages natural hair. The wigs provided essential protection, but with one strict condition.
They had to look exactly like her own hair, completely seamless.
There was one famous wig, which they loved and used for over a year, that they nicknamed the Gilda, because it blended so flawlessly behind her hairline.
And this synchronization of the trifecta style, makeup, and hair, often conducted in these tight, high-stakes environments like Air Force One, was the core of her effortless appearance.
Let's shift our focus now to the global stage: diplomacy and state dressing. The stakes were just astronomical here because the gown stopped being just clothing and became this political and aesthetic decision, celebrating the allyship between nations.
State dinners were, you could argue, the highest-stakes wardrobe events. The very first one, honoring India, saw Michelle Obama choose a champagne-hued strapless gown by Naeem Khan.
Which was a clear, deliberate nod to the Indian-American designer, using her platform to signal respect and alliance.
And Naeem Khan's description of the challenge is just fantastic. He was trying to combine the aesthetics of India and America in one dress. He did this using hand-beaten sequins, a technique his grandfather used for royal families in India.
Wow.
Sewn onto champagne-colored tulle. It created this delicate floral pattern, and Michelle said it made her feel like she was stepping into a golden gossamer fairy tale. The gown itself was a diplomatic note.
And these events were cultural showcases, too. The book details the American entertainment they chose to celebrate these relationships, Beyoncé performing for the Mexico State Dinner,
James Taylor for Germany.
and that unforgettable moment when Janelle Monáe's energetic, modern Motown riff got the entire South Korean delegation up and dancing.
These were choreographed events where fashion played this leading, symbolic role.
And yet, behind all that glamour was just intense, grueling logistics. The glamour versus the logistics section is particularly compelling. The hair and makeup routine for state visits often had to be done mid-air on Air Force One during the descent.
Can you even imagine the turbulence? Michelle recalls joking with Carl Ray, the makeup artist, "Please don't poke my eye out," while he was trying to apply eyeliner during a bumpy landing.
She even had to steady his hand once while he was applying lip liner. That's such a vivid image of the physical commitment it took to achieve that flawless look.
And once they landed, they faced the dramatic walk down the stairs to greet the heads of state. This was not a casual stroll. Michelle's greatest fear, often in heels and navigating a billowy floor-length gown, was tripping.
She had to constantly balance and hold up the heavy fabric just enough to avoid disaster. That effort, that physical labor under pressure, is the price of that flawless presentation.
As her confidence grew in the role during the second term, her fashion choices became noticeably bolder. She was more willing to take calculated risks, moving outside the traditional conventional safety zone expected of a first lady.
The perfect example of this willingness to lean into fashion was the final state dinner with Italy in 2016. She chose that rose gold Atelier Versace chainmail gown. It was dramatic, it was a risk, and it required immense coordination.
And Meredith Coop's story of getting that dress shows the level of dedication. She had admired Versace's iconic chainmail since she was a kid, but she requested rose gold specifically because it complements Michelle's skin tone so beautifully. It softened the metallic edge.
But the logistical challenge was enormous. The dress weighed 15 pounds.
15 pounds.
And because it was chainmail, Christy Rilling couldn't alter it. It required the Versace team to do this specific, careful, entirely hand-done alteration process. When Michelle gave the green light saying, "Let's do it," to this challenging, dramatic choice, Meredith was giddy. She was flexing her creative freedom.
And the second term also saw her continuing to champion younger or lesser-known American designers like Brandon Maxwell, who designed the beautiful dress for the Singapore State Dinner. It cemented her legacy not just as a wearer of beautiful clothes, but as a strategic patron of diverse American talent.
So moving to global impact, her wardrobe choices while traveling were always rooted in purpose. International travel was for advocacy, promoting democracy, and critically, raising awareness for girls' access to education, which she describes as the through line for all her work.
Her first international trip as First Lady, the 2009 G20 summit in London, provided an immediate opportunity to use her platform strategically. While Barack was in closed-door meetings, she visited the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson School.
And she sought out that visit because more than two-thirds of the student body were daughters of refugees, many of them young Black and brown women.
She felt this deep, personal, emotional connection, seeing herself in them. The visit was designed to shine a light on the global education disparity. But even this important advocacy was immediately undermined by fashion criticism back home.
Right. She wore an Argyle cardigan that day, which resulted in the New York Times headline, "Michelle wears kooky cardigan to Covent Garden."
That was just the start of the cardigan saga in England. She even wore one when meeting the Queen, which protocol traditionalists criticize as being too casual.
But Michelle defended the choice because she valued the soft comfort and the approachability of the cardigan over the rigidity of a formal jacket. She was intentionally sending a message that she was there to connect, not just conform.
This required Meredith Coupe to constantly navigate cultural protocols and, critically, the complex question of cultural appropriation. What do you wear when you visit a country with such rich, distinct traditional dress?
And Michelle Obama established a very clear and consistent strategy. She made the conscious choice to avoid wearing traditional cultural dress, like a sari in India or a Moroccan kaftan. She said she simply wouldn't feel comfortable wearing someone else's traditional dress.
So instead, the strategic approach was to signal respect and alliance by wearing American-based designers who had specific roots in the host countries. It made it this powerful hybrid statement.
You see this commitment everywhere. She wore Maria Cornejo, who was born in Chile when visiting Santiago, Bihu Mohapatra, who was Indian-born but New York-based, in India.
And she chose Maki, a top by a Nigerian woman designer, and Studio 189, which is made in Ghana, for her trips to Africa. These curated looks resonated so deeply, they elicited pride from the local populations while she maintained her own authentic American identity.
The logistical prep was immense. Meredith worked closely with the State Department and advanced teams to manage cultural sensitivity, ensuring requirements were met. Long sleeves in Morocco and Saudi Arabia, covered shoulders in India.
And protocol checks for houses of worship, verifying specific requirements about head coverings or knee visibility.
One of the most powerfully symbolic choices was the sleeveless Marni dress she wore during her visit to Gorée Island in Senegal, the site of the Maison des Esclaves. The fabric was colorful, resilient, perfect for the heat.
But the true meaning was deeper.
Yes, the colorful pattern incorporated the red, white, and blue of both the American flag and the Liberian flag, Liberia, having been founded by former American slaves. She emphasizes that standing in the door of no return in that garment was this profound moment.
Reminding her of the incredible resilience and strength of her ancestors, connecting her personal history to the diplomatic trip.
And this symbolism connects back to the core theme. When traveling to Africa, her presence, as the first Black First Lady, combined with clothing that honored her heritage and the countries she visited, it represented a kind of change that earlier generations fought for but did not live to see.
Clothing in this context wasn't just aesthetic, it was historical and political documentation.
And perhaps the most intimate and culturally heavy section of this book is her hair journey. It details the immense social burden and the eventual hard-won freedom associated with Black hair in America.
This narrative starts with the shadow of white beauty standards she carried growing up. The pressure to conform meant constantly trying to turn her beautiful curly hair straight. to fit into a mainstream culture that fundamentally did not recognize or often accept her natural texture.
She gives us this vivid, almost visceral account of the painful ritual of wash days on Sunday, lying back on the hard, cold Formica kitchen sink while her mother worked tirelessly, detangling and finally using that terrifying hot brass comb.
Which inevitably resulted in minor burns to the nape of her neck or her ear.
The initial outcome, bouncing, swinging straight hair, was an immediate, if temporary, freedom. But it was quickly followed by intense restrictions. No swimming and the constant reminder, don't run so much you'll sweat out your hair.
The need to maintain the straight look became a physical constraint on her life and movement.
Seeking relief from the agony of the pressing comb, she eventually moved to the at-home beautician, Mrs. Phillips, which, while more professional, still involved expensive, time-consuming maintenance. This whole process trapped her within the confines of the expensive hair industry from the age of 10, the year she got her first relaxer.
College offered the first real escape through protective styles. At Princeton, she discovered braids, which she got done in D.C. She highlights a photo of herself in a jean jacket and braids, and that image represents liberation.
It meant saving hours previously spent pressing and straightening, and freedom from constantly worrying about her hair reverting back to its natural state.
However, the White House imposed immense constraints on that freedom. This is where the political weight of her appearance is just so palpable. She explicitly states she kept her hair straight throughout her 8 years to prevent it from becoming a distracting talking point.
And those constraints were rooted in reality. She knew that in 2009, the first black first lady could not show up in braids. The societal tensions were just too high. Workplace discrimination against natural black hair was rampant and often legal.
So she had to prioritize her husband's political goals and her advocacy over her personal aesthetic freedom.
You see the contemporary relevance when she brings up the Crown Act, which was introduced in 2019, years after she left office, to combat this exact type of discrimination.
She argues that while someone like Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson can wear sister locks now, the country simply wasn't ready for that kind of change in 2009. She even says we're barely that country now, which underscores the ongoing nature of the struggle.
The public shift came shortly after she left the White House. Just 2 months after stepping down, a photographer captured her natural hair while she was on vacation. The image went viral, sparking intense public commentary.
That moment symbolized her personal liberation from the constraints of the office.
And the ultimate political and cultural statement was her eventual public embrace of braids, first seen at the unveiling of her official portrait at the White House, and then featured so prominently at the 2024 DNC.
This post-White House era introduced us to Najeri Radway, a licensed cosmetologist specializing in protective styles like knotless and tree braids. And Radway emphasizes the profound impact of this choice. Michelle wearing braids is a powerful, non-negotiable message that her natural hair is not a political statement or a distraction.
It is our beauty standard. It reclaims her identity on a global platform.
The final chapter, Confidently Me, is her fully formed thesis. It shows a woman who has claimed her own story and is asserting her legacy in the post-White House world.
She offers this strong reflection on turning 60, a deliberate pushback against society's tendency to diminish and sideline older women, especially in the media. She writes, "This is what 60 feels like," and she claims she feels more beautiful and more myself than ever before.
Her message is defiant. She's not going to retreat or disappear. She's going to speak her truth boldly.
And part of that bold truth-telling is using the look to reclaim her narrative. After years of critics dissecting every single fashion choice, she is taking ownership, defining what fashion and beauty mean to her.
And she specifically notes the shift to broadcasting Michelle Obama the person, not Michelle Obama the First Lady.
This translated into a really distinct shift in her post-White House style. She grew tired of the endless rotation of dresses and skirts required for protocol, and she moved overwhelmingly into pantsuits, trousers, and jumpsuits.
She found utility and comfort in those silhouettes, working with Meredith Coupe to integrate more sparkle, more stage appeal, and bolder colors that were suitable for arena tours.
The Becoming Tour was the perfect canvas for this new, fearless attitude. She agreed to wear higher heels for the stage, a major departure from her White House kitten heel comfort zone. And the ultimate viral moment, the Balenciaga yellow skirt and the gold sequin thigh-high boots she wore in Brooklyn, perfectly encapsulated the change.
We have to stop and analyze the contradiction there, right? For 8 years, her style was rooted in this relatability, the J. Crew ethos. And suddenly, she's in $4,000 Balenciaga boots.
The book's justification is crucial. This was about the freedom to have fun, showing that fashion could be aspirational and fun. When she was operating outside of the political pressures of the White House, she was defining her own terms.
Other post-White House moments cemented her role as an icon and a champion of diversity. Her 2021 inauguration look, that Sergio Hudson monochromatic burgundy coat, pants, and top, was a sensation.
As Sergio Hudson's quote is so incredibly powerful. He said Mrs. Obama wearing his clothes validates him as a great American designer, proving that designers of color deserve the same opportunities and recognition as established white designers.
It wasn't just a great outfit, it was market validation for a deserving artist.
And most recently, the 2024 DMC Monty suit. Sleeveless, edgy, paired with that braided ponytail. Michelle Norris described it as a stylish ninja look.
It symbolized her bold leadership and served as a powerful, nonverbal call to action. Do something.
Ultimately, the most important takeaway, the book's core thesis that just transcends fabric and thread, is that confidence is an inside-out experience that you cannot buy. The clothes are just a tool.
True confidence requires nurturing a strong sense of self and an absolute commitment to physical and mental self-care.
And she is explicit about this application. She strategically schedules time for exercise and socializing, treating self-care as a non-negotiable component of leadership, not a luxury. That ability to prioritize her own balance is the foundation that lets her wear those ambitious, high-pressure looks so successfully.
The final crucial lesson is that anyone can put on a beautiful dress, but the purpose is feeling good in it. That internal sense of well-being is what translates into presence and how you carry yourself. The clothing supports the confidence, it doesn't create it.
And this internal toolkit, built through years of strategic choices and self-reevaluation, is what truly defines her look and her enduring legacy.
This whole episode has just demonstrated how profound and strategic intention can transform something as external as clothing into this dynamic narrative tool. Moving from Sears polyester to Versace chainmail, all while maintaining a core identity rooted in practicality and purpose.
It's so evident that Michelle Obama intentionally leveraged the public's fascination with her style as a tool to continuously redirect attention back to her core values and her global initiatives.
So our challenge to you, the listener, is to conduct your own strategic audit. Define your own style criteria. What values do you hope shine through your presence and your style?
Think about the depth of intentionality required for every single choice she made. The decision to choose comfort over convention, inclusion over the establishment. In what ways has Michelle Obama's approach to strategic style inspired you to take more ownership of how you present yourself in the world?
Whether that presentation is for celebration, professional assertion, or just simple joy, this is an invitation for active participation in defining your own life narrative.
We highly recommend that you purchase this book, Michelle Obama's The Look, to explore these specific stories, the quotes, and the stunning visual history in detail. Seeing the artistry and the history laid out visually is really essential to fully appreciating the scope of this work and its practical applications.
And as you get into the book and its images, please consider engaging with the author, Michelle Obama, and her dedicated team Meredith Koop, Carl Ray, Yen Dem Tu, and Neri Radway on social media. Their collective creative genius made this look and this powerful book possible.
Thank you for joining us for this extensive podcast episode on Michelle Obama's The Look.
We appreciate you following, subscribing, and sharing the Plain Books podcast.
We hope you found this discussion as insightful as we did. We'll see you next time.